could use this bad boy.
What if you rolled up to a school shoot with that?
All right, kids.
What?
Here we go. All right, everybody say cheese.
Hold that smile for
Hold
10 seconds.
Yeah, people have it really good now, right?
Where to draw the line with
man.
an angry parent.
Yes.
You know, like
see, that's good stuff.
That stuff.
Oh, that's what we could talk about. Customer service. Go to the next video. I could talk about that for days.
What are you going to talk about? Will we disagree?
Nope. Maybe. Yeah, we definitely will. That'll make a good video, though. It's not worth being right. Let the parent be right. They got a lot of emotion behind it.
Oh, see, that's where we would cross paths.
Yep. Maybe we should do a video on it.
Oh, we can.
Do you want to lose a whole school because you have one renegade mom, or do you just want to work it out and move on?
At one point, I believe you have to draw the line.
Well,
when the parent is
if they're being completely illogical and
being disrespectful to your employees,
that's where we disagree.
You have to set the example to your employees that is unacceptable. When you side with the parent, you're telling your employees that behavior is okay.
Unless you tell your employees, you're going to run into parents like this, and just because that happens doesn't mean is no reflection on how I view you as a valuable employee. It's just you're doing your job. You don't take it personal. That's number one. You cannot take it personal. That's what I would say to them. I would say there's no way a reflection of me not having your back. It's in no way as long as they have that expectation going in, they know that I know that they're valuable. And does that change the conversation then?
Your point is, for me, your position is valid up until a point. Society's idea of customer service, right. Now it's almost adversarial. Like you're calling up the cable company, you're calling up the bank ready for a fight,
right.
And they come in ready to beat you up.
Mm-hmm. See, here's where I think we de-escalate before you ever get there. So once they just have to disarm that person up front, and you don't get in those situations as often as you probably would if you just are like, oh my God, what's happening, and freaking out and getting defensive. If you just say, I'm going to take care of you seem like you're really upset. Mm-hmm. You start doing the mirroring. You repeat them.
Yes, I will.
That calms them down because they know you have your back. Their anxiety is coming from the fact that they think that no one's going to help them.
Correct.
And they think they have to yell and scream to get what they want when they don't. When if they just talk, then you get their rational brain. When you have their angry brain, done. You're not going to get anywhere with a person like that.
Absolutely agree with that. Again, it comes to the point when that doesn't work. Where does the conversation go from there?
Mm-hmm.
And you're still sparring with the customer. When they're staying in an irrational mode. When you have given in to what what you're now perceiving as demands, that all your go-tos. Here's all my tools to de-escalate the situation.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, to your point earlier, we don't want to lose that school over the one parent.
Right.
And we're in the mindset of building long-term customer value in that, that's a parent of a kindergartner. We're going to be photographing them for 12 years.
That's a great point.
So we're going to reprint that package, but for some reason it's a dumpster fire still. It's still on fire. And now you're 30 minutes in.
To me, and tell me if I'm wrong, or if it's also in the training of the customer service rep. What tools are they using to try to de-escalate? I'd like to know that before I make an opinion about the situation. Because if the tools are not the type of tools that I'm thinking of for how you train a customer service person, then I could see how it could keep going. And if it keeps going, that's a recipe for disaster. You have to de-escalate it in the first minute.
Everything you're saying is rational, but in my experience, there's those handful of customers every year that those tools just don't work.
What's an example of a tool or two that should work? Like when you've gone through your tools and you're like, what are a couple tools that would work or would call about?
Well, they never got the package. We're going to print them the package, and that's, no strings attached. That's again, that goes back to the point of even if we never received an order, we're going to print the package.
Oh.
At least in my experience.
Well, that's going above and beyond. But if they're not expressing empathy
if
they're beginning of the call,
if they're claiming they place the order,
do you think is there, in your experience, because again, every studio is gonna be different. if you're coming into it like just a robotic, like, we'll reprint it for you, ma'am, don't worry.
No, that is not how we train. I can't speak to other companies.
Other people.
How the empathy was our number one priority when we trained our customer service.
There you go. Then as you're saying, it still failed, even though you say, I'm sorry to hear that.
There is a subset of customers
that are just angry.
Who are angry, unhappy, crazy people.
Fair enough.
And it is small, few and far between.
So these are exceptions to the rule.
They are the exceptions to the rule, but it comes to the point where I would hand it off to my
like a manager, supervisor, or owner,
to my colleague, and he wasn't able to get through to them.
Okay.
Then it did escalate up to the owner.
Okay.
And I back the owner in saying, customer, we're going to send your money back to you.
You probably said the same exact thing that the owner would say, but it's coming from them, and to them it's a different perception. That's just how, that's the sad human nature.
That customer still wasn't happy.
Even after that, what do they want? So how do you find out what they want?
Exactly. That goes to my point that there are just a subset of unhappy people in this world. Very small. Most people, you can snap into the rational brain. But what do you do to those? And that's the subset where I think...
I have an answer for it.
Okay.
You got to find out what that person wants and what they need somehow. You got to figure that out. And ask them those questions. And by doing it subtly, by saying something like, okay, we're going to reprint the package. We're going to escalate the production on it. We're going to make sure we get it to you next day, and we're going to throw in an extra 8x10 if that would help. Boom. The if that would help part, that's like what stops them in their tracks. And if they're really mad and crazy, then they're not even listening to you anyway. I'm saying if someone's actually hearing your solution.
And you are 100% correct. But I will always argue there's going to be that little bitty that you cannot snap into rational mode.
At that point, I would say I would love for you to talk to the owner. Mm-hmm. The owner, and I wish I could get the owner on the phone right now. However, the owner's in a meeting or the owner's wherever. Give me a half an hour, and I will make sure the owner calls you personally.
Yep.
Would that be okay? Ask those questions. Would that be okay? Whatever, things like that. Now, that half an hour, the whole point of that is in that half an hour, you would hope they are calming down at that point. And that's like scientific stuff. I don't know. Fight or flight brain would calm down after, say, 20 minutes. The owner calls exactly on time or earlier than you had said. That person's already happy about that. Wow, the expectation was met. They get on the phone with that person, and the calming owner who knows how to speak to the customer immediately says they're going to help, and hopefully you're talking to a more rational human at that point. So then the owner, half an hour later, would that make a difference? Sometimes, maybe.
Yes, and yes. Again,
I know there's this teeny slither percentage.
Yeah, so you keep sort of pushing up the hill, right? Yeah. And you say, okay, we've done this. That person snaps into rational brain and is happy. Move on. Okay, that didn't work. You push it up to the owner. Owner talks to them. Let me talk to your manager mentality, right? Or the buck stops here mentality, like they're talking to the final person,
right?
That snaps in. Then there, to my point, there is that subset that even talking to that person, they're in. For whatever reasons in life they have gotten into this mental state, that they are getting things for free. They have no skin in the game anymore, and they're still belligerent, belittling, even to the owner of the company.
That's tough.
And my position is that as the owner of the company, I feel you have to put your foot down.
So what happens when you put your foot down? What could that cause? What kind of reaction could happen if you have this person that is that, as you described?
There is the chance that they go to the school. In my experience, when they have put the foot, this is true. They have put the foot down. That person went to the school.
Okay.
The school sided with us in every case.
That's great.
Because the school knew the track record of that parent.
Okay. So these are the exceptions to the
yes.
rule. You will have that
yes.
parent. You just, no matter what you do, you can't please other people all the time. I get it.
Your workflow and de-escalation techniques are the ones that should be followed. Absolutely. If you don't know where that bar is to say, I cannot help you anymore, here is your money. Like, I have done everything. I'm printing you a free package. I'm giving your money back, but you're either still yelling at me, the owner of my company, to tell me that I don't care about your problems is categorically false.
I would want to get curious though why they're still.
I would review. Now you're a psychologist.
Well, you have to be a psychologist when you're in. That's right. You're a psychologist and a firefighter when you're in a customer service situation. When you're in escalation like that, you're a psychologist because you do need to use psychology in these situations. You're a firefighter because sometimes it's like emergency situation and you gotta get on your game.
But at what point are you just trying to win for winning's sake?
You're not. Something must be happening to keep them escalated. In my opinion, it just sounds like.
But it is okay. Yes, but is it?
Like it must
is
be,
it your job to fix it?
No, that's not what I mean. Something in what I'm doing, I have to look at myself and say, what am I doing that's still keeping them triggered? Why? What is it in my voice? Maybe I'm not listening to myself. Maybe I'm being kind of gruff on the phone, or maybe I'm being like condescending to the person or patronizing, or they perceive it that way. I don't know. It could be something like that. Because once you've given them all the things they need, what else is there that's left? So they can keep saying all those terrible things, and you can say, I could see how you'd be upset. I could see this. I could see that. And don't take it personal. If the second you take it personal, then they're going to hear it in your voice. You're going to hear it in the way you deliver it. The ma'ams will sound different. All those things will sound different to that person.
At some level, at some point, you will take it personal.
I guess that's human nature to take it personal, but that's the rule. See, that's where we're different in our mentality on this, because I get that people are going to take it personal, and I've seen it happen in customer service here, and I've seen it wherever, and that
because then I would argue
always a recipe for disaster. It's frustrating for that rep. They feel like they're getting beaten up. They feel like they're getting insulted.
The reps could always come to us, 100%.
And then, again, it's so hard. It's so much easier for me to say don't take it personal than someone actually not taking it personal. But that is, to me, that is the key to the situation. So we're not in that same. It's like a different world almost, the way that it's handled, and the results could be slightly different. I'm gonna throw a plug out there for a great channel on YouTube that people could check out for customer service.
Plug. We need a little.
Yeah, this is I
whistles.
So like I said, it's a learned thing, and there's I'll name a couple sites I think will be really helpful for people when it comes to customer service. Shep Hyken, we'll put the links below in the description. Shep Hyken is an expert in customer service and customer amazement. Gary Vaynerchuk. Let's talk about Gary Vaynerchuk for sure. It's a different type of customer service mentality, but still, all these little tools apply very well. So Shep Hyken, Gary Vaynerchuk, and I would say a third one, let's say old school, classic, Brian Tracy. I'll say one more thing about this I think is interesting. When you're on the phone not taking it personal, like what happens when you are taking it personal? Your blood's boiling, you're getting to their level, and you're starting to freak out, and you're getting angry, and you can't do your job. Then let's say you're one of the reps, and you get off that call, and you're like, then you complain for 10 minutes about it to that person. Then you've just thrown all that bad energy to them, to you. Everyone is letting it affect them. And then the rest of the day, maybe then they go home to their wife or their husband or their kid, and they start, can you believe this guy on the phone? If we could manage our mindsets not to let that happen and have a Teflon mentality, then none of that would matter, and you go home and be happy. And you don't worry about that stuff because you know it's nonsense. You know that person has their own things going on, and there must be a reason that they're having that type of communication, and it has nothing to do with you. And if that can be trained, and if that can be realized or reminded of those reps, I think they would have a better experience no matter who they get on that phone.
Those are goals that should always be aspired for.
Totally.
100%.
I mean, that's communication in life anyway, and it's easier said than done. But I think in a customer service, but I think at a business setting though, it's easier than, let's say, with your wife or your parents or something like that. That's more emotion involved. This is a stranger basically to you that you're taking it personal from. And then there's the different levels. I always talk about this too when we talk about customer service. There's like the different levels of customer communication that you're going to have. The phone is kind of a lower level, but it's better than, let's say, email or chat. If you get a really angry person on email, you're going to get a different representation of that person. Mm-hmm. You're going to get caps. You're going to get craziness. You're going to get someone who's, they always talk about people who you write a letter, you sleep on it, and you read it the next day. Yes. And then there's a story about Abraham Lincoln with that where, he did that and he threw the letter out. So it's the same with email, but only they're sending it and they're not hitting. Yeah, they didn't have time in Google and Gmail to do the auto unsend or whatever it's called, undo.
If we could get rid of chat and email customer service, life would be
No,
the world would be a better place.
So that's not what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying.
What I'm saying is
because
when you see that in those communications, because they're great forms of communication, you immediately say, okay, this is not a situation where an email back is probably going to be effective. This is where I say, I'd like to set up a phone call with you. It seems like you're really upset, and it seems like I could help better if we get on a phone call. Same with chat, all that. Chat, those things are more for like a quick question and answer, check status of something, email, quick couple liners. When someone writes you like 3 paragraphs and they're angry in caps, you call that customer. Because otherwise you're going to have back and forth. They're going to take things out of context. You call that customer and you save a lot of time and energy.
That is why I think it's bad for customer service.
Email.
Yeah. Because you're the human aspect. You're able to disassociate. And so when you talk on the phone to someone, or when you're face-to-face customer service,
you have to be more of a human.
You have to be human,
right?
And correct. And so I think.
But let's talk in the reality.
30 years from now, when I look back
like,
and say, "What was using email for customer service great?" It allowed the interaction, like the cycle of it, to go so much faster.
Right.
And so to your point, if like,
there's no
hey,
hours
what's my
either.
order status? Boop, boop, perfect for that. But when it comes to I am unhappy, all caps, boom.
Well, I would love it
and then it
in a
goes
perfect
back
world,
and forth,
but the reality is that customers are going to do that. Worse is social media. I didn't mention social media.
Oh, God.
So you're going to have customers going on social media blasting you, and that is really hard because I could do a whole video on how hard that is. You do respond. You want it to be out there. You want to take accountability, even if they're wrong. You have to take rational customers will see who that you're a good company if you're responding in a professional manner versus going to their level or not responding at all. You have to respond to those, unfortunately. But if it's something that you messed up, like, hey, and they shouldn't be blasting on social media, first of all. I agree with that. But they will, and they are, right? That's the reality we're in. There's good and there's bad with that. So once they do blast you on social media and they say something that's true, you got to own it. And that's it. And then people will see that and everything will be cool.
That I agree with.
But that's still a lower level of communication. I still probably would call that person again. I would say, we want to fix this for you and yada, yada, yada. But that's what we're talking about. Like, yes, email.
That is how we
you would have done that. You would have called.
How we operated in. We'd love to get in touch with you, like to work towards a solution.
So again, even if they're wrong.
So what are the takeaways from this?
The takeaways are never take any of these calls personal. Would be number one.
I'm going to take some of them personal.
Okay, that's why this is.
I'm going to give you counterpoints to your takeaways. So we got point and counterpoint.
De-escalate as quickly as possible.
Yep,
humanize the situation. Empathize.
Empathy is important.
And create solutions for the customer that no one thought of, and make sure that they agree with those. And it's not worth the back and forth, and it's not worth the struggle to lose a big account that maybe you've worked for, or a customer. Let's say you've been with a school for 5 years and it took you 5 years to get that account. This one little thing could escalate into something you don't want it to, and you could lose all that over something silly. So it's like, I'll give you a quick example. Somebody, with Nations Photo Lab, if a package is lost, right, and if I'm like, well, I saw it delivered, and they're like, no, I don't have it. Nothing I can do to prove that. I just say, okay, I'm going to ship it again. And some people would say, well, I'm charging you for shipping again. No, like, that's $7, whatever that
Correct,
charge is.
I agree with that.
Here it is, move on.
Yes.
There's going to be that, like, 1% or half or 10% of people that are whatever they are.
Trying to get something
and that's fine.
Out of you.
Like, that's part of the business. And once you're past that,
chalk those up.
And maybe that person's a really good customer. Maybe they tell the truth. It's not your job to find that out. It's your job to service them. And you never know who that person is and who they have connections with and all that. And you just treat everyone
Here
the same
is where I struggle with customer service, to that last point we started out. As our organization grew, how do you
scale that?
You scale that, but more importantly, scaling was okay. It was empowering the first line of defense to feel like they had all the tools, instead of just escalating it up.
You give them the autonomy.
Where the customer felt like, I'm talking to the person that can help me.
Yeah.
Instead of the, let me talk to your manager mentality.
No, I agree with that 100%.
I think that is a challenge.
You shouldn't have to escalate any calls.
For all companies.
That was a challenge. Okay.
I think it is, because you struggle setting the rule structure in place. You want to, I think, any good customer service team,
like the manager, the director?
The manager, the director of customer service wants to empower those.
Yeah.
But they also don't want to. You end up, you see it with really large corporate companies where they have to make rules for the least common denominator.
That is hard.
And that starts stripping away all of that autonomy.
Wait, but that's the problem with the company, in my opinion. Take a Zappos, take a Nord. They're extreme examples.
There are absolutely
they're an
good
extreme
examples
example,
out there.
but
Yes.
you can find a middle ground, in my opinion.
Yep.
No one wants a script on the other side of the phone. No one wants the "I can't help you" on the pad. No one wants to hear that nonsense.
The Zappos, the Amazons,
right?
I think that is the right mentality always.
The Nordstroms.
And that goes back to your point of with nations. We're reprinting.
Yeah, there's no point in spending that time struggling, getting everyone upset, yourself, wasting time when you could be on the phone with the next customer, and you could also not get everyone all aggravated.
It just at worst, it comes out in the wash.
Right.
You're not I would wager and this is just anecdotal, not even anecdotal.
Right.
The amount of reprints versus the labor spent. If you, instead of doing the reprints, you battled.
Right. It would be a much bigger loss on the battle for so many reasons. And I've seen it so many times. And even if the customer is quote unquote wrong, they're going to tell people their story. And then what happens? Oh, I was going to try them, but so-and-so photographer said that they were horrible experience. So I'm going to go to this company where I don't have that experience.
And I have seen that a couple, now that I'm on this side of the fence, dealing with some clients who haven't come over to that camp, the Amazon camp. Right. And want to respond back to the parent, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Oof. And I've tried to nicely counsel them. Yeah. And say, well, using anecdotes, like, well, this is how we approached it, and we felt it worked better for us.
That's great. That's a great way of doing it, is give an example of what worked.
And hopefully they move over to that, because I do agree that you need to be liberal in your customer service policies.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of surprising. I mean, not surprising in the fact that, of course, it still happens. It's human nature, but it's surprising because there's so much information out there now. And you see so many great companies right now that are just killing it in customer service. By the way, it made me think of another book.
We got a book.
Gary Vaynerchuk. I think this one really inspired me to get what more modern customer service looks like, which would be The Thank You Economy by Gary Vaynerchuk. The Thank You Economy by Gary Vaynerchuk.
I haven't read this one. Tell me about it.
It's been a while since I read it, but it's taking that we'll call it the 90s call center nightmare and turning it back into the 1920s. Go into Bob's butcher shop, he's got your order ready for you because he knows you type mentality.
Is that where we're doing using the field camera and
right.
Hey,
hold still. Yeah. Hey, how's Martha doing? What we tried to do is that one-to-one neighborhood kind of feel of customer support where you're human. So that's what CRMs are for and all that. So that's a good way, by the way, if they don't have a CRM, customer relationship management software or some kind. They're like free now. You can get these things for free, or you can get one like a Salesforce. I've used Streak with Gmail, which is great. And it's a way to have a database of your customers, and then when they call in, you can have a reference point to who that person is, and maybe how much they've spent, how long they've been ordering with you. There's context for who you're speaking with. So again, just like the butcher shop in 1922, you know that person. You may not know them, but at least you could give them a sense of, okay, I know a little bit about you, and you kind of can have a much better experience on the call with that person. Or it could be a negative thing that could be written down, say, this person is very particular, or this is what happened last time, and going into that call, so that's really that's what Thank You Economy is really is really knowing your customer as best you can.
And I think with those we call them VIP customers to some level.
Sure. They'll be loyal back, is what you're going to say? That
too, but also you learn if you've got a larger customer service team, like who interacts better with them, personalities can clash, so you can find people that they just
They
fall in
only
love
want
with
to talk to Matt.
Right.
They can't deal with anyone. Matt takes care of them every time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people will say that you get into trouble with that, but I love that. If you can do that now, maybe you can say, hey, if I'm not here, my coworker, Joe.
That is a double-edged sword.
Amazing.
Because that person can leave the organization.
That's a problem too.
And so
agree.
you need to be prepared. But to pivot on your butcher shop analogy.
Yeah.
To pivot slightly, I think that's where a lot of these smaller
Pivot. Sorry, I did like the Ross pivot from Friends. If I can cut that in there. Pivot.
Go pivot. 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 Pivot.
Pivot.
The couch upstairs.
Yeah. All right. Back to your point. Pivoting to your point.
I think that's where the smaller volume studios are really well positioned right now.
Yes, exactly.
In the thank you economy, you need to still be attacking that angle, even with the huge acquisition in the space with Black
That was the
and
best
Shutterfly.
point, man. That was the best point.
The schools want that level of
local
service.
photographer and that level of service that knows the families and knows the parents.
That's in the
huge advantage
in the community.
Yeah.
And if you are a for-profit company, but you can provide a level of customer service that the big players can't.
Yeah, that's your advantage.
And the schools, for the most part, the people that run the schools aren't business people and don't think in a business,
right,
a B2B mentality. They're out there looking for someone who can provide the best level of service and know they care about the kids in the school.
Yes, precisely. No, that's great. If you're trying to get a school contract and well, I can say it, and Life Touch has a huge amount of school contracts and you think it's this fortress, well, that's your angle. Like, they're going to say, well, what do I have to bring to the table? Why should we use your local studio over the big guy? That's your angle right there. I'm local. You guys can reach me anytime. Here's my cell phone, whatever it is. Like, I know the parents here. I know the kids. I interact with them well. My kids go to school here.
Yeah. Or not even go to school.
Or they went to school here, anything.
My kids went to school in this district.
Right.
I mean, if you were in the community.
I've lived in this community for 30 years. Any of those things would be a good selling point. So if you're not talking about that now, that's important.
I think it is the most important thing to talk about. Obviously, you need to be offering comparable.
Yes, you still want to make sure
you
that
have to
you're
be competitive in your product offering and your services.
Yeah.
But that's got to be your competitive edge and your differentiator.
Totally.
And that relationship still matters.
Absolutely.
And it's you can't discount that. I think there's been that sort of mentality the past decade, the past 2 decades, that relationships don't matter, everything's cost driven.
Yeah, if you get in that mindset of money and you get that complacency and like the customer is bothering me, they're wrong, they're annoying, that's a recipe for disaster. That's like you're close to being kind of on the outs, in my opinion, or having some problems with your company, especially when you're putting money first as the reason for doing it. Like, when I think about that, it's almost like if that's the mentality, I promise you that like that is not the recipe for a long-term successful business that will be respected in the community, that will be sniffed out in a heartbeat, and people will sense that. It's easy to get off that track very quickly, though.
You can lose sight of it.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think we've covered a lot. Other takeaways are just to remember, don't forget how important customer service is to your business, no matter how small you are.
To compound on that will save you contracts as well.
Yeah.
It's not it's how you fix problems that people remember.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, that's good. Like, you bring that up. Like, you want to empathize, you want to disarm, empathize, kind of present some options, review what they said to you, repeat it back to them, make sure that you understand what they are upset about, and then kind of review what you're going to do about it. I'm going to go ahead and put this order in production for you. We're going to create a track. You'll have a tracking.
Yep.
You'll have tracking tonight. It's estimated to be there by Friday. And I'll give you a call just to make sure everything turned out okay on Friday. Would that help you out? Mm-hmm. I like ending those sentences. If that would help, would that help you out? Like, open questions like that, because it kind of takes them off guard. Like, what is it? No, that wouldn't help if you gave me my package on time on Friday. Like, they're not gonna say. They're most likely not gonna say that unless you did something unless you misheard, didn't understand them. I'm John. This is Matt.
Yeah, I'm Matt.
And thanks for watching our long video on customer service, and see you next time.
Take care. Price is Right.
Then you hug the. You talk to Bob like that.